All right, let's get started. So good to see all of you here for this burst of innovation. As you probably saw from my Facebook post, I got all excited and jumped on yesterday thinking the webinar was yesterday when it was actually today. So I'm doing it twice, which actually I think is fantastic because it's such an important topic. Great to see some of you who I know have joined me many times. There's some new names on there that I don't recognize. For those of you, just know, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat bar or ask me privately during Q&A on the Q&A button. Either one is fine. This is a pretty important topic, so normally I try to keep these to about 10 minutes. This one probably goes about 15 minutes. We go a little bit over because there are some things to cover that I think are essential in managing disruption and distraction and not letting it sabotage us. I know a lot of us are kind of trying to figure out new routines or just struggling with the uncertainty and the change that's going on. And the tools I want to talk about today, which are very much neuroscience, behavioral psychology based, will really help us not eliminate that stuff because we can't do that, but actually manage it in a way that doesn't suck our energy and in some ways actually can energize us. So let me get into it. The first one I want you to consider, and actually let me just back up and say that I want us to think about this situation that we're in not as a stop, but as a shift or a reset. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, and I know for a lot of us it feels like that, but this is an incredible time to innovate and think differently. So the tools I want to give you today are, I think, a much more meaningful level of tools to minimize that distraction or the impact of that distraction and that disruption. All right, now that I'm done with my preamble, let's dig in. So the first one is I want you to think about your energy. And in fact, I want you to think about the energy that you have as finite. In fact, it is finite, kind of like the bandwidth, the Wi-Fi, internet in your house, right? You know what happens when all the devices are going, when everybody's home? It's probably happening to you right now. It's happening to me for sure, right? And the TV's on and the iPad's going and the computer's going. You know how when that happens, it's like the bandwidth is spread too thin and everything starts to slow down? Well, that's what's happening to us right now. And it's why we're allowing all this distraction and disruption in, because our energy is spread too thin. You know, the TV is on the channel, you know, metaphorically of stress, and the iPad is on the work that you need to get done, and the other iPad's on the kids that you need to manage who are now home. And then, you know, the computer is on your sales activities. You see the point, right? When everything is on and going, our bandwidth just comes to a screeching halt across everything. So when we're trying to manage all of this at once, our energy and our productivity and our focus go down tremendously because we are spread too thin. So here are the two tools that I want to give you under this that can really help you manage that energy. Because here's what happens, right? It's like residue all over our brain and it's sticky. And every little thing that's going on, even though we think we're focused on one thing, is actually sucking attention. So there's actually two things that I want you to consider. The first one is starting your day strong. And what I mean by that is not necessarily turning on the news right away. You can get to it. We all have to get to it. But here's what happens. When we turn on the news or kind of log in like that right away, we automatically put some of our bandwidth onto the anxiety and the stress, right? Put that off. It's happening, right? We know it's happening. You can wait until noon to look at it. So instead, start the day strong. Do one thing that makes you happy or feel positive. Whether that's connecting with a friend, walking the dog, having a great cup of coffee, whatever it is, start your day strong so that you don't start by throwing your energy bandwidth all over the place. The second thing is, I want you to think about having a kitchen table conversation with a group of friends. So here's what happened the other day. I have a couple girlfriends who also own small businesses, and as you can imagine, we're all going through challenging times together. And we got on a Zoom call and we were very honest about the struggles we were dealing with and how we were dealing with them. And I was telling them, because that morning I woke up with a lot of anxiety, and I was telling them that I felt like I had two personalities, right? Like one personality, like if you called me 1 hour, I'm all positive and like, hey, this is an opportunity for change, which I do believe. But then you call me the next hour and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do, right? Like I just kept vacillating and it was so stressful. My bandwidth was everywhere. But you know what? Having that conversation with my girlfriends in the morning got that out of my head. It was like this sticky residue that I couldn't get rid of, but saying it out loud to someone else allowed my energy to be focused where I wanted it to be focused, right? So think about trying to find a kitchen table conversation group that you can talk to in the morning and just get it out there, or journal it if that's an option for you. Getting it out of your head and just saying it and writing it will help clear up the energy in your brain. I will tell you, after shifting gears and starting strong in the morning and having those kitchen table conversations, my energy is much more up here, and I'm much more able to focus because my energy is not spread thin like the bandwidth in my house is right now. So that's about your energy. The second thing I want to talk about that helps minimize distraction and disruption is getting into the state of flow, state of innovation. So a lot of us have heard about the state of flow before, right? It's about like, when you're in that flow, time ceases to exist. You're like totally focused on what you're doing. You're creative problem solving. You're being strategic. Like it's all kind of working and connecting in what you're doing, and like the world around you cease to exist. We want to get to that state more often, because when we do that, all that distraction and disruption may not go away, but it doesn't enter, right? It doesn't permeate through. Now, here's the thing about state of flow. We think of it as something that happens magically, or only when we're doing something we love or something we would deem creative, but that's actually not true. We can actually get into a state of flow anytime we want. Now, if you're one of the people out there who's taken the Innovation Quotient Edge Assessment, the IQE, which you can just go to our website and take, it's awesome, because in your custom report, right, when you have the full information, it actually has exercises specifically for you. Here's what happens. When you do that exercise for 5 minutes, all you need is 5 minutes, it starts to trigger that innovation in your brain and that state of flow. So then you can apply that to your task at hand. Now, I want to give you another one of my favorite exercises that applies to all of us, that can help all of us get into a state of flow easily and often. And this is what I call antennas up. It's actually from my book, Innovation is Everybody's Business, which is officially out in May, but you can pre-order. And it's called Antennas Up. Here's how it works. I want you to think about a brand or business that you absolutely love. The one that if I asked you about it for at all, you would geek out about it for hours, right? And we all have them, whether it's, like for me, it's CrossFit because their just business is so brilliant, or Southwest because they do everything so differently and so meaningfully, right? We all have them. So here's what you do. You think about that brand and business you love. Then you think, if they were to solve my challenges right now, how would they do it? Right? Like if I were Southwest, I would streamline this webinar process. I would make it so that everybody who wanted access to it could get to it easily. I'd give maybe early access to some people. Do you see what I mean? I would take the friction out of buying it, right? That's all the things that Southwest would do. So I want you to think about that. And then I want you to think, how would I apply what they do to my world, right? There's something, when you think about the things in your own personal life that you love, it opens up a sense of discovery. It puts you into a positive mood. It makes you more willing to explore new ideas. It gets you into that state of flow. It is so basic. I do it multiple times a day with different brands and businesses just to open up that mind space. And I don't care, by the way, if I am, writing new content or doing a video blog, or if I'm doing an Excel spreadsheet in QuickBooks. I do this exercise first because it gets me into that state of flow, which is so important. So do that exercise, antennas up, or look in your report if you have your everyday innovator style, and do the ones that speak directly to your brain and how your brain works. The third thing I want to have two more that I want to tell you about is invest in yourself. There's nothing that makes you feel better and more focused and kind of get those distractions out of the way than doing a little something for yourself. Whether that's online learning or a class or push-ups or whatever it is, right, that works for you, do something. I've started taking a lot of online courses on LinkedIn, actually, free ones, actually, and some paid as well, depending on what they are, because I just want to up my game, right? But it makes me feel good to be able to invest in myself, and it kind of minimizes all that other disruption that's happening because I'm moving the needle forward for myself. I have a fitness challenge with some girlfriends of mine. Anything to move the needle forward for myself. Invest in yourself. You'll see, by the way, in the chat bar, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, we've got two things happening. One is we're going to start doing these live vlogs with these type of topics every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. It's the same link once you register. I highly suggest that you go on and register so that we can have these conversations over and over. You can put your questions into. I think it's really important that we not only stay connected, but keep tackling how to transform uncertainty into opportunities. That's what we're going to be discussing. So there's one way that you can invest in yourself. We have that ongoing free, at least for the next 3 weeks while we deal with this. And we have a class as well. So invest in yourself, whatever that looks like for you. The last one I want to talk about is so interesting to me because this is the one that we, I think, push aside more easily, even though it might have some of the biggest impact. Did you know that it takes our brain 5 to 7 minutes to transition from one task to the next? But what we often do is go from task to task to task, right? Our brain needs a break. It needs to have completion on one side and then open up on the other side. So actually going from task to task to task makes you more open to distractions because your brain's not operating at full speed. So here's what I want you to do. When you complete one task, I want you to take a 5 to 7 minute break where you either meditate or move, but not Netflix. And I'll tell you why in a minute, right? Either meditate for a couple of minutes. There's some great apps out there for meditation, or move. Here's the thing about movement, right? It not only feels good to move, it actually gets the blood flowing, which gets more oxygen to your brain. So it actually physically helps you be more productive and more focused moving forward and less susceptible to all the distractions out there. I do 10 push-ups when I'm in between tasks. It's fantastic. It's such an easy way for me to just move and complete one task and go on to the next. Here's why not Netflix, because for a while people were saying like, do a 40 minutes of work and then take a Netflix break. I love Netflix. I like to binge at night. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big binger at night. But here's the thing, that still takes mental energy. So you're not actually giving your brain that moment it needs to catch up. You're not giving your conscious and subconscious mind the time that they need to actually process, decompress, and move on. So I don't know how many breaks I take during the day. It depends on the task. But every time I'm finished something or every time I have that moment of like, and I feel my shoulders go down, I do that. All right, I want to take a quick poll for on here. I want to know which of these was most valuable to you, and also give me a chance to reiterate them. So take a second to fill out the poll. Here's what I want to know, what you're going to do, really. Not just what's most helpful, but what you're going to do. Start strong, not the news. Find a kitchen table group, get the conversation. Use antennas up to get into that state of flow. That's that exercise about the idea of something that really speaks to you. Invest in yourself. Find a LinkedIn class, do one of ours, whatever works for you. Or take 5 to 7 minutes for a movement meditation break. All right, I launched the poll, so hopefully you can actually respond. I know my bandwidth in my house is a little bit low, but I'd like to see what you're gonna try. This is, by the way, another thing to get to focus is to get to commitment. So that's our 10-minute burst of innovation. Oh, interesting, yeah, the start strong, not the news. I know it's hard to do, right? It's interesting to see a few of you do that. Hopefully you guys can see the results too, where it's like we're having a little bit of weird lag time. All right, everyone, I am over time, but like I said, I wanted to make sure to get all of that out for you. Please consider doing those. When we are in a time of this much distraction and disruption, it is really important that we take care of ourselves and that we find ways to be focused and attentive and productive. It will help us in the long run. Walking around frenetic and crazy doesn't actually help any of us. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next time.